So howdy YouTube, howdy world. My name is Sean Merriman, and I'd like to talk to you today a little bit about how other forces in this world seek to enslave and keep you enslaved. Big words, little man. But we're going to get some key points here today. If you remember the last video, we went over some very key points like knowing yourself, self-responsibility, being honest, truth being the thing that will save you from all doubt. We talked about the evolution of souls, human beings. We talked a little bit about the Sumerian pantheon and some representations of gods there that we could see as perhaps also being planets in the other stories that are told by the Sumerians, and how Nibiru that comes to destroy us is absolutely non-existent, even in the tales that it's referenced as it was destroyed. So without getting too deep into all of that kind of stuff, we're going to start with a very basic premise today, and we're going to build our way up. And this very basic premise is going to start with something I'm sure everybody here is very, very familiar with, and that is the concepts of fear and love. So many videos out there just lay it right on the line, say it's these two things that are going to save us. If you recognize that these are the only two things and you cling to this one, you can defeat this one. I can't tell you just how inaccurate and completely ridiculous a statement that is. That there's only two things. There's only fear and love. All emotions are classified under these two things. Yeah. They don't mix. They have nothing to do with each other. Just fear and love. You know why New Agers come out and tell you, not just because it sounds good, they come out and they tell you that there's only fear and love. Well, they do that because the main line will only allow them to speak and get their status if they follow the main line. Now the thing is, when they're telling you this and you're accepting this, you have already taken steps to ensuring your future enslavement. And not just your future enslavement. I mean, this is putting blinders on to everything else. There's no happiness. There's no anger. There's no sadness. There's none of these things. They all come from fear and love. And we're going to look around and show you first just a little bit how that is just absolutely preposterous. First things first. Love. What is love? Guys, you ever been in love? Guys, you ever been 16 years old? It's your first girlfriend, first girl you make out with, first girl you go all the bases with, first couple weeks you and her, a couple times a week, and you get sucked into it real good, and you start thinking you're in love, right? And you just remember how in love you were that first time. Yeah. Well, when she ripped your heart out and left you afterwards, leaving you there on the cold floor by yourself, crying, "Oh, ye gods, why me?" Is it fear that you felt? Mm-mm. Was it love that you felt? Mm-mm. It was anger. And sadness. Now the New Agers will tell you, sadness and anger come from fear because they're negative. I'm here to tell you, anger trumps fear and love any day of the week. Anger saves you from fear. Anger protects you from love. The opposite end of anger is sadness, not happiness. Happiness is somewhere in the middle, to tell you the truth. But we digress. We've drawn the line now, and we know that, love, anger, sadness, fear. Well, yeah, something else about somebody that's in love. When someone's in love, when someone is in a state of complete happiness and positive vibrations, their survival's never threatened, they're never challenged, they grow stagnant. As a matter of fact, as a human being, if you're not getting a complete experience all through this circle, if you're ever just hanging out in one spot and not trying and just denying everything else, you're just going to hang out over here and deny everything else, you're not going to be complete as a human being, ever. At all. And that goes for any of the spots on this little compass we get drawn here. You can't just be at love, no matter what. And love is probably the worst as far as dumbing down goes to be at, because things that are completely at love don't really evolve. They're happy in their situation in such a way that their positive vibrations just trap them in a moment of time and such that they just live their lives through whatever perception they encase themselves in, while never accepting everything that's really around them. So they never evolve. They never learn the lesson that they were supposed to learn. I mean, and the same thing goes for people who are sad and angry all the time, and people who experience fear in such ways that, you know, that blocks them off. But for them also saying that love is a completely positive thing, I mean, we already went through the example of how love can be turned to anger very quickly. Anger can turn to hate very quickly. How to control your emotions. It's part of it. Understanding your emotions and why you feel that way. It's a lot to it. It's not so simple as to just say you have these two emotions, pick one. Let me tell you some positive things about fear. Anybody ever been in a flight or fight situation? I have been in several. If it wasn't for fear, you wouldn't be able to get out of those situations. It's that fear that kicks off the natural instincts that shut your mind off and let your body take over what it's known for hundreds of thousands of years, 100,000 plus years. Fear. You know why we evolved brains like we have? It's not because we were sitting around loving each other all the time. It's because we were fearful. It's because we had to evolve so that we didn't have to be so afraid. We had to become stronger. We had to become smarter than those animals that were trying to hunt and kill us. We had to make them the prey. And therefore we had to have brains larger than theirs, more keen than theirs, more understanding than theirs. We had to have physical attributes such as these babies right here that allowed us to harness things from the environment and manipulate reality in a way that an animal could not. We, because of fear, pushed ourselves up out of the mud, rose above the other animals, and said, we own this shit. I mean, that's something to be proud of. That's something to be proud of us. More than any other creature in evolution on this earth, we, the human being, crawled up out of the mud. We, the human being, through fear, learned to be better than we were when we originally started. None of that has anything to do with love. Love didn't create that. Love has nothing to do with evolution. If you're loving, you're not trying to strive for anything. If you are fearful, you are constantly at defense. You are constantly under attack in such a way that you're used to it. You can flow, you can bob, you can weave, you can get all that down. You can overcome it, because none of these things are something you should shy away from. You should always seek to control yourself in love. Absolutely, never let love go astray. It's okay to be sad. It's absolutely, but you can't wallow in sadness like some people do. It's okay to be afraid, but you can't be afraid of everything. You gotta leave, you gotta do something sometime. You can't just run away from fear. You have to harness it, ride it, embrace it. And anger, well, some people might say, hey, why'd you put anger there at the top, Sean? Put anger there at the top because anger really comes from all of these, more so. Fear isn't driven so much from love. Fear isn't driven so much for sadness. But fear can come from anger. And anger from fear. Love can go into both of these, actually. But I've never in one situation, like being in love and having it twisted, never did it turn fearful. Never. At the opposite of any love spectrum is fear on the other side of it. It just doesn't really make any sense. I feel like, except that they're the ones that drew this line, and I'm trying to explain it to you that how this is bullshit and this is just the way it ended up. But Like fear, that's not even the right place for it almost. I mean, fear almost doesn't, fear should just be in the middle because of all the attributes I just listed for it. I mean, there's no such thing as a negative emotion if you know how to control it. But I don't know what you would put on the other side. What's the opposite of love? Hate? So if you're going to really draw this chart with the two emotions, the way they want you to, well, that's not going to work. And we don't want to draw their chart, so we're going to do it our way. With everything we just described, it made absolute freaking sense, and you know it. Everybody's like, yeah, I knew that the whole time. Well, we all know these things. We just don't say anything when people try to point it out to us. I finally am. So instead of having a line where you draw fear and love as if they're actual opposites of each other, and that fear is this negative thing that you're supposed to run away from, let's draw it how it is. Anger, because it stems from all things, and it is powerful enough when controlled that you can trump all these things with it. Anger is a motherfucker. And then on this end, we're going to have sadness. Sadness, as we all know, is just strong emotion. You know, I mean, some of us are very sad people, and it's just, it happens to us at all points. Everybody loses at some point. Everybody grieves at some point. And then they would tell you that fear and love would be here. And the way I'm constructing it is going to be different. Like I said, that's why we redrew this. Love would be over here. Hate would be over here. And you know what would be in the middle? Fear. Because fear is not even really an emotion so much as it is an instinct. You know when to be afraid. Being afraid can help you survive. Being afraid can help you recognize overabundance of any of these. You need a balance, and fear can help you keep that balance. You don't want to just completely turn around and be completely courageous, as I wouldn't put courageous even to be an emotion that played into anything at all. I'm only putting fear there just to show you how downplayed it absolutely is, and how much credit should be given to fear for the evolution of mankind. And I mean, how much fear did you have to overcome? How afraid was the first human beings with keen minds and tribal societies? How unafraid were they having to be to go out there and say, oh, hey, look here, this bush. Never see bush before. Of course they don't speak English, just saying. They sound like Indians. Never see bush before. Oh, other guy says, oh, let me try that. Grabs a berry. Tell the people not to eat this one. Right? So, I just gave my knees a good bang too. Didn't even know I was going to do that. Jesus. Ah, I'm kidding. Oh yeah, I'm not. God, I'm 32. Oh, we just leave that in there. I gave him a real good one. Oh. And see, that's funny because just today I was, never mind. Somebody complaining about their knees. Anyway, fear really wouldn't be on that chart at all. Like I said, I'm just using it as an example to show you just how wrong that one statement. If you want to blanket it, I mean, at least say love and hate. They're at least opposites ends of the spectrum. You know what I mean? And you can do this with many pairs of emotion, but to be honest with you, I think these are the most four basic emotions that there are. That's as basic as you can get it down. You can't just narrow it down to two of them. You have to have the counterbalance. You have to have a cycle. You have to have a circle. 2 points don't make a circle. It just doesn't happen. So, got that out of the way. Y'all understand what I'm saying about that? So you know now anytime you see a New Age person holding a conference, or any time that they're up there pointing with their projector and their laser pens and they say that there's only fear and love, you know the answer to give them. And you can give them an example by showing them how angry that statement makes you. Control your emotions, experience your emotions, feel your emotions. That's the healthy thing to do. Don't deny that there's all these other things just so you can cleave to those two things and keep your perception so simplified. You'll never evolve that way, and your energies are going to continue to stay out of whack, and they're going to continue not to evolve spiritually, and as a race. And I want us to evolve as a race. Okay? So with knowing that they've waved this magic wand and they do use your emotions to control you, but they never just use fear and love. You know what I mean? It's never that simple. They use anger to control people as much as they do sadness, hate, and love, and fear, and courage, and porridge. They use all emotional spectrum. They don't just narrow it down to two things. It's not that simple. It never will be. And if you make it that simple, you people who are actually trying to do something out there are never going to get anywhere. Because you yourself are not combating the full range that they are assaulting you with. So, the perfect circle. I don't know if you put that up. Now we take it down. So, now that we know the nature of reality, and I've dispelled another myth, because a lot of what this is about is dispelling myths. There's a lot of myths that need to be dispelled and just need to be said in common sense terms so that anybody can realize it. Okay. Control. Now, we see the emotions that they use to control you. What are the best ways to control those emotions? Let's not get all technological and talk about electromagnetic pulses and low frequencies that can disrupt the brain activity in such a way. Let's not say that they can map brainwaves in such a way that they can project what you are thinking onto a monitor and it's getting clearer and clearer every day. Let's start where they started. Religion. Okay? Now, you got Tribe A. Tribe A lives down here on the coast with the fishes. That's my fish. Tribe A lives down here on the coast with the fishes. Tribe A has a god, and we will just, for easy sakes, we'll say that god's Poseidon, the god of the sea. Alright, now, for all intents and purposes here, Tribe A has made up Poseidon. Tribe A worships this god because they live on the coast, because the ocean is important to them, because trade is important to them, because fishing is important to them. They worship Poseidon so that he'll protect them when they're on the seas. There's no little landmass here. Now, coming up from Tribe A, someone's cut a road. Okay, and here along the road lives Tribe B, a little bit further inland there. I forgot the E. Now, Tribe B, living a little bit further inland, they do more hunting. They got a bunch of trees around them, right? So it's tree action. Here we go. Look, ooh, big trees. Yeah, those are totally trees. Glad you can't see those close up. You make fun of me. They really kind of don't look like trees. They're going to accuse me of putting Illuminati symbols in here. And say they like to hunt. They got a lot of deer. They got deer. Oh yeah, lots of deer. There we go. That's a deer right there with his big horns. Yep. There goes its eyes. Now, they worship a god they made up. Say Artemis. Okay. The hunting god. Now, along this road here, mountains. Goes up into the mountains. And then you have Tribe C. Tribe C has a lot of mountains. They have a lot of sky. They have a lot of rich materials with which to work. Unlike the people in the forest, you know, they have access to like hard stone and steel and iron and things like that. So they like to work metals. They like to work with the elements around them, silver, gold, whatever they can find within their mountain habitat. And so they, you know, they got gold bars. They got bling bling, right? Okay, so Tribe C, blacksmiths, working elements and stuff. They worship Hephaestus. 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 There's so many different ways I can look at that word and think to pronounce it. And I never like them pronouncing things wrong. Anyway, so you got these three different tribes living along this road. All of them worship within a god. They kind of in the plains. Just it's all flat. You got Tribe D. Tribe D is agricultural by nature of a sort, but being that their plains are not so fruitful in agriculture, not working out for them so well, because all the rivers over here, there's the river. So over here, Tribe D wants to come get some. They don't so much have a religion. They never really kind of made one, and maybe that's why they weren't successful. But what Tribe D did have was some well-thinking minds. So they put together the plot to start here in the middle and cut them off. As Tribe D invades Tribe B, they find the religion of the land. They find what the people worship. And now in order to occupy this territory, they're going to have to mine the worshiping of those people. So there you have an invasion. They co-opt this, and then over time of their occupation slowly turn Artemis into, let's just make one up, shall we, we'll say, Slogan, Lord of the Hunt, is what it eventually becomes. Now, Tribe B and D are all hooked up. They come from B, and they take over the next part. They adopt Hephaestus. And when they adopt Hephaestus and they mutilate these people, or mutate these people into their tribe, and they become Tribe D as well, they name him Kortrite, the god of blacksmithing. And now they have two gods. They have a god of hunting and a god of blacksmithing. At this point, they realize that they're starting to form a pantheon. So they start to pick out other things piece by piece before they even come on here and take this one here. And they first invent a father god, which they call Balrathia. In Balrathian, the father god. We make up names because it doesn't matter. We're making up a religion at this point to show you. And then they're the sons and daughters, Hephaestus and Artemis, Slogan, Kortrite, the children of Balrathion. And then they come down here finally that they've got everything on the mainland hooked up. And they, of course, invade where it all started with Tribe A. And they co-opt the first one of the ocean, adopt him into the pantheon. At which this point, as they spread on, they continue to take ideas from people as they spread on. So as they expand, they take on more and more of what they expand into, because you don't immediately move in and expand like that. When you're occupying a nation or a group of people, you cannot, it's not as successful to go in there and just blanketly force them into believing the way you do and telling them how to do it. It's more easy to control them if you slowly over time adapt and mimic their ways and then steer them in another course, which is what they've done for hundreds and hundreds of years. I mean, that history just shows you that if you know how to look at it. So, just a moment. And they use these religions as they adopt tribe by tribe and conquer to control the people, to control what they think, to control what they can do, to control the people within their conquered territories. But then another tribe comes in and smashes it and takes over and makes another pantheon until the point where it gets back all the way back to the beginning again, and they're all named Artemis, Hephaestus, and Poseidon. And, that's just how it goes. It started out very small, groupings joined up and joined up. Now that's how you can tell in every religion that there is, including the modern ones, and even the modern ones aren't that modern. They're 2,000 years old, but they're still practiced today. No one quite came up with new ones. That's kind of funny. And I mean, that would be the longest standing religions, because as far as I can tell, there's, except unless you get into Eastern ones, most of them don't last a couple hundred years. But the modern religions, let's look at them now that we kind of see how mythology spread, and it doesn't matter what they're all named, because they really do all tell the same stories. Absolutely, there's always an archetype for agriculture, for hunting, for war, for prosperity, for love, for fathership, mothership, all that. All the archetypes, including death, are represented throughout all mythologies. That's why they're all the same. That's why they all tell the same stories with different characters and sometimes slightly different plots. But it's different names, same thing. And you should know that by now. If you're even watching this video, if you don't understand that, get out of class, go back and do some 101 research, because this is for big kids. When you get down to it, three religions today, and we'll start, because they all come from the major here. That's Judaism. Judaism represents the Father, also known as El, or King. Drawing a direct parallel, well, not parallel, drawing a line from there, we can find two different religions that stemmed from this that still are practiced today. And the two different religions only differ in that they both have different prophets and different interpretations of the events here. And of course, that's Christianity. The Son, because Jesus claimed to be the Son of God. And we'll get into that. There's a little story there. Jesus the Son, he is the Prince. Over here, you have Islam. The Holy Spirit. Muhammad. The warrior. These are the three major bases for control, religious-wise, on this planet today. Political influence of these organizations, social influence of these organizations are countless. Religion used to have a much, much stronger hold than it did a couple thousand years ago, even just a couple hundred years ago, my goodness. Even in 1950, it was cool to kill black people. It was just cool. Churches, preachers would say, hey, Jesus wants you to do it. Just saying. We're not that far off from where this was terrible. And this got you away with all kinds of things. For anybody that wants to point fingers at places where it still happens. We're not that far off at all. And this kind of hurts me to talk about a little bit. It really does, because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. But you have to understand. You have to. And you can't just tell me I believe. You can't just tell me I know, I read it. Because none of these are counting as source materials, and if you don't understand how the Holy Trinity, none of these religions work without each other, and you want to point fingers at people, well, you're the idiot then. Jesus didn't so much preach that he was the Son of God, that we were all the sons and daughters of God. Muhammad only said that Jesus was not the prophet prophesied in Judaism, the Son of God that was foretold of in the Old Testament. Other than that, nothing terrible was really ever said about Jesus. Jesus didn't say anything about them. But yet you have all of these fighting each other. And really, when you think about it, fighting each other, when does Christianity ever really fight Jews? Just say it straight out. Not really ever. Most of the major Christian networks out there are doing everything that they can to support Jews as they see them through the nation of Israel, not understanding the real Jewish people. The nation of Israel is seen as Judaism, and it's not. It's a state. Okay, we're not talking about races of people as much, and when you do speak of races of people, there is a very definite, but very long lost heritage, very long lost. There's only 2 surviving tribes that exist today that are really real Jews. And the rest are people who adopted the religion throughout time and co-opted it. We all know what an Ashkenazi is. So, in Christianity, you see a lot of cooperation here. But then what do you also see? You see attacks and attacks. Because this side of the triangle doesn't seem to get along with this side of the triangle. The warrior. To me, like when I read all these and say that I've read the Bible better than the Quran, I've read enough of the Quran to know that, yeah, there's some stuff in there it says that Von Helton could read out of context and make you think that they're going to come kill everybody. But you have to understand that an infidel is someone who doesn't believe in God. Christians and Jews don't count as infidels, even though some of the extremes preach it that way. According to the Quran, as I have read it, they all believe in the same God. The Quran is the one that points that out, where these don't. The Quran almost like fills these in to a point. It's like historically where gaps are missing. This can explain things to you. So any Christian that just wants to be hardline in their view needs to read the other story of God. This one, I think, has been attacked and had been stolen from and just persecuted so much by all of this throughout time that it developed this story as a counterbalance to defend itself. Because they had the land. I mean, all these people were Hasidic. They were all in the land at the time. But the dominating spirit of the land was Islam. Was Canaanites, Palestinians, etc. Babylonians, Sumerians. And then a tribe of people began to infiltrate it. 12 tribes of people to be exact. And they were all slaves out of Egypt coming up into the area. And I mean, you read the Bible. Exodus is over. Next book starts up. First thing that happens, they get ready to go to war. They said, Moses, you can't go into the Holy Land. We're going to war now. Go kill those people. And why? Because I said that was yours, and they're there. That's how these things get started. That's how, when you say, literally in common sense terms, how history went down, and just plain old not trying to put perspective on it for you. I mean, that's what happened. They showed up, took some people's land. They're still taking people's land today. This side of the triangle is never recognizant of what's going on with this side of the triangle. They won't be in balance, ever. Now, the problem is that you've got such a point where they're putting all of it in one direction that they're cutting themselves off to a point where you just draw a line right there. This half of the triangle, well, half of that belongs to them, and half of that belongs to them. And out of the whole world, after all the crimes committed, and after all the wars and everything instigated from these people invading the land a couple thousand years ago, they now have this whole half of the triangle to themselves, because ideologically they have separated themselves off, tried to co-opt into everything, and just lost power. Lost it. They have no more power in this world. Politically, you can make some argument that the nation of Israel has clout in the world, but it by no means controls the world. And Christianity, you can show, has some clout, motivations for voting in America, because America is a Christian nation. But it doesn't have near the power. You can't just kill black people. You can't just go, hang people for no reason. You can't burn witches. You can't do all the stuff that they used to make you do. None of it. Islam, okay, I give it to you. So they still murder people in the street. They still think stoning's a good idea. I mean, they take principles that are like 2,000 years old, and they're just sticking to them. They're working for them. I don't live there. I wouldn't want to live there. If the people who live there choose to live that way, including its victims, making a choice to be there and within that environment and don't try to get out, I'm cool with it. Be straight. You have to experience all things and that kind of horror in this modern world. I mean, a place where you can actually go and experience medieval times, places that live under Sharia law to the letter. And please, nobody tell me, I know it's extremists. I know it's when you go too far with something, it's fundamentalists is what it is, and every religion has them. But please don't come and tell me like how it's not horrible, because I've watched videos of human beings being battered to death, and you don't even know what for, But even to me, who thinks there are some just unforgivable crimes, and I want to see somebody physically punished, I admit that. When someone takes a life, there's reason for it, but that's not a way you do it. You know what I mean? I'm for victims' rights. I think, like, if someone killed your daughter, you'd save a whole bunch of tax money by just letting the dad take care of it. But I digress. These people lost their power. These people still have it, is kind of what I'm trying to get to. In life and times where these things were pertinent and could make you fearful and make people who can't control their fear fall in line, because there's only solution to the fear is to follow what they tell you over here. The thing is that they don't have that power anymore. They used to just tell entire nations to move, and they would. And now they're lucky if they can get a phone call with a president or a congressman or anything. So Islam, and they know that they're creating this situation, but it's gotten way out of hand. Like, this is not where they expected it to be. And why I call this the Holy Spirit and the warrior is because Muhammad is the one, and what did we talk about last time, that tells the truth. The Holy Spirit is what resides inside all of us, consciousness. God is the presence of consciousness in man. Muhammad was the truthful one, in my opinion. Muhammad was the one that told it how it is. And over the years, the Von Heltons of history attacked the one person telling the truth. And we're now seeing everything crumble. Everything, including this, it's losing power fast. So the thing is, let's board again. Now that we've established the modern power control structure through religion, and that's not even they realized some time ago that there was no way they were only going to do it with religion. And one of the first things that, if there is any organization that practices advanced ritual magic that dominates and controls the earth above the likes of Rothschilds and Rockefellers and Obamas and Bushes and all of those good guys, if there is power above them, it was established a long time ago. And when it was formed, the very first thing it was assigned itself to do was take power away from religion. Religion had all the power. If you want to get a government going, if you want to get real power and conquer, you have to take out religion. Now, does that mean that religion is hocus pocus? No. Belief dictates reality. So that enough people do believe in something, there is an actual force out there called El. There's an actual God. And when these people are consigned themselves to death, then that is what, that's what will happen to them. Exactly what they have believed, exactly what they've trained their minds to experience. They will experience as such. I guarantee you that you will experience as such. So say it. Let's take Christianity for the example. And let's take into account the self and how we dictate our own perceptions. And that death is a process of only your perception. Everything on this earth dies alone. No matter how many people you've got around you. Take this journey alone. So you got Christianity. And when you die, what happens? Well, the obvious answer for people is, oh, you get to go to heaven or hell. No, let's just be bold with it. And someone please tell me I'm wrong. But stay in your grave. That is, your spirit is confined to your physical body, no longer useful, buried in the ground. Judgment Day is the day that all souls will be called before the Lord. Judgment Day is the day that they will decide who goes to heaven and who goes to hell. And not till then. So, can anyone tell me when Judgment Day is? Judgment Day is when Jesus returns. That can absolutely happen. No bullshit. Jesus could absolutely return. The thing is that you've consigned yourself to this fate Because after Jesus returns, of course, then you're called up to heaven, and he decides if you were good enough to stay in the nice place or if you're going to go to the ghetto, so to speak. Now, that is short and skinny. I mean, that's how it's written. Of course, that's not how it's practiced. I mean, it's very funny how things are written are not how they are practiced or taught. But that was my understanding of it as a very small child. I was like, I don't want to do that. I'm out of there. Belief dictates reality. I'm not going to believe in that. That's not going to be my reality. Don't tell me God will blah. God is the presence. I talk to God every day. Every day. I ain't seen nothing he ever said in any books, and sometimes he's just a weird guy. So, belief dictates reality in such a way that when you die, you're going to consign yourself to certain things. So you also look at the way the Muslims consign themselves. Somebody that understood belief dictating reality wrote the Quran because when they die, they expect virgins to be waiting for them so they can get hot action. If that was ever just some male pigs writing a book, let me tell you. But it's a great thing to believe in, really, when you think about it. It's better than staying in your grave and waiting for somebody to judge you. If you're down and you die, you straight up virgins. That's the kind of thing people believe in. I mean, and if you understand that belief dictates reality, then someone that suicide bombs, that's really what happens to him when he goes to the other side. Because we dictate what happens to us. It's all inward. We control the transmission, and we don't understand that we do. But you really have to believe it. You really have to put your focus into it and really know it at your core. And some people do it and aren't aware of it, such as, religious folks that just got told it and programmed that way. The thing is, you can have so much more fun with it when you're aware. That's what I'm trying to do, is make you aware. So gods and archetypes, and we're seeing that, of course, there's hunting gods and agricultural gods, and there's war gods and all these other gods and goddesses and different aspects. We see that everything has to exist in balance. We know that there's more than two emotions and there's more than two ways to be controlled, and we see how they use fear to control you, but that it's not even one of the four basic emotions, much less one of the only two. Anger comes from fear because you are afraid. I'm not afraid. No, I'm about to come over there and show you just how not afraid I am right now if you don't shut up. And they're like, oh, well, that's just you being afraid. And I'm like, no, really. Fear's got nothing to do with it. Really, adjust your attitude. Thank you. Appreciate it. No? Okay. You know what I mean? It's got nothing to do with fear. So, where do you go from there? I know where we go from there. Now that we know all the religions. I know you've heard this word before. Kabbalah. Kabbalah is the higher form of Judaism, where there are ritual elements. Christianity has something called Catholicism, which through its ritual and its hokery are the high ritual art of Christianity. Islam, as it is written, does not have a basic form. One thing I like about it. Catholicism, because there's also Baptists, which don't participate in high ritual art, and there's Protestants, and all these other, schools of thought revolving under the same teachers, but they don't share customs in such a way as the Catholics are really ritualized. I mean, if you think about the kind of things that they do when they go to church on a weekly basis, it's freaky. I'm just saying, for real. I mean, they're eating people. They're participating in cannibalism, symbolic cannibalism, for God's sake. It's really representing of the spirit going in here, drinking. This is my body, this is my blood. Okay? The thing with the ashes, things that go on at Easter, and there's even higher forms of that, but we'll get into it. In Islam, Islam kind of keeps those practices. It doesn't really have higher form. It doesn't have lower form. It has a right in the middle form, and they do plenty of ritual of their own. So, Catholicism, Christianity, where's all that lead? Ritual. Magics. When people are talking about people who practice magic, people who practice rituals, people who do things like the cremation of care, they want to tell you because they don't understand, because they're one or other of these. They want to tell you that that's Satan. They're Luciferian Satanists. Those Satanists are going to get you. Those dark forces are going to get you. And either they know and they're pretending not to, or they just flat out are too unperceptive to know that no. Ritual magic and the practice of demonology and all these things you hear and see about stem from those two things, the higher ritual forms of the religions of God, the Father El Yahweh. Let's get into it. First things first, you got to understand. Keep saying it. Belief dictates reality. What I'm about to say, as it is written form and taught, is the solid core belief structure of the God-fearing person, and that is both those who practice Christianity, Judaism, and to some extent people who practice Islam, for the fact that we all do worship the same God. They all do worship the same God. I don't know why I said we. But to start easy, I mean, the thing is, Christianity is like the newer, there's Old and New Testament, we're all aware. And when you read about the high priests of the Old Testament and the sacrifices and the rituals of Abraham about to kill his own son, the rules of Leviticus, for God's sakes. If a woman is unclean on the night of her marriage, like she's married, her and her husband go to the room, and then it turns out she's not a virgin. The virgin gets murdered right then and there. And the man has to bring a goat to the temple of sacrifice, or the tent of sacrifice as it would be, because tribal people moving around that don't ever really have their own nation. So without getting into real hokey-pokey stuff, and drawing symbols up on here and showing you shit like that yet, because we're still sticking with basics, you just got to get this thought in your head. God created everything. God said, let there be light, the light of consciousness. You could say in certain ways that if I were to have a religion, you could call it the theory of the first day. That before all things, God made consciousness. I support that. But in the process, God made a lot of other things, didn't he? God made Satan, which some may say is only to counterbalance God, but perhaps God, in his infinite wisdom of creation, knew that he cannot exist if he does not create an equal and opposite force. This equal and opposite force, even by the words of his creation in the Bible, and shown through time after time after time in different examples, is at all times beholden to the Word of God, beholden to the will of God. Satan cannot do anything that God didn't want them to. And that's a fact. Who told Satan to go tempt Jesus? Who told Satan to go tempt any of the people he ever did? Anytime Satan appears talking to anyone in the Bible, God told him to go do it. And if God didn't directly tell him to do it, by his very creation of God, has authorized him to do as such. Satan cannot operate outside the will of God, no matter what. When you learn that fact, you can see now how there's no way they worship Lucifer. No way. even religions that do worship Satan, and not saying the satanic Bible written by Anton LaVey, because they don't literally worship Satan. They don't worship anything, to tell you the truth. But real satanic people who would worship Satan and existed in occult form throughout the years and had their own demologies and everything like that, they were never really successful. They never went anywhere. Their theories were always falling flat, and nothing ever worked because they never understood how things really worked. And, you know, this is thousands of years old, and they've known it from time after time. So if you see that even by worshiping Satan in that aspect, since Satan was created by God, you're still worshiping God. That's still a force of God. That's still the will of God. Even if that's who He's consigned you to go live under, because you didn't do what you consigned yourself and agreed to by contract of morality inside consciousness, that's who you get to go see. But that's still the will of God. Nothing can be outside the will of God. So there's no way that God is here doing His thing, and Satan is just this wild force that runs all over the planet doing whatever it wants to and is trying to destroy everything. No. Satan's doing that because God wants him to. Because he's testing you and you're failing. This is what y'all believe. If you're watching this and that is your belief, this is what you believe. Not everybody watching this believes that, of course, but you have to understand what the core principle is and what the core drive is. Because how they do this, and a little bit technical here. So let's say the Masons, for instance. I want you all for homework to find the PDF. If you have to ask me for it, I can send you in Skype. It'll take about 5 minutes for me to send it to you. Of Richard Carlin's manual of, Richard Carlisle's Manual of Freemasonry. Tell you everything you ever know, every ritual you ever want to see, how they advance up through the ranks, everything you'd ever need to know about Masons in one book. Way more telling than Albert Pike's. But that's your homework, is to look into that. And then we'll get some complicated stuff out of there. But for now, the Masons operate on a 3-stage operation. Now, the basics of each operation involve being blinded, knocking at a door, requesting permission to come in, and each initiation rank you're told a little bit more about what you need to know, and the rituals become a little bit more complex. Now, everybody goes nuts because there's really like 33 other optional degrees. Like I said, optional. Now, what's really going to blow your mind, because this is common Freemasonry. Here, let's make this a little better. Okay. Tell me what you think of this. Common Freemasonry, 3 ranks. Memphis Rite Freemasonry, 33 ranks. Not Memphis. Scottish Rite, 33. Memphis Rite Freemasonry has, I believe, 96. Yep. So you ever seen 96? I mean, I hear everybody's like 32nd degrees as high as you can go. You don't know about them 96 degrees, do you? And there's 96 degrees. Let me tell you, I've met some. You gotta be really just, woo! You don't even wanna like get up into all those other rituals. Oh my God, there's just so many of them. And after you get past the point where if you're actually reading these books as the rituals are laid out and as everything is explained and the authors talk about it, you'd realize that after you get past 3, you're just repeating the same thing over and over and over. You don't really ever learn anything. And according to Richard Carlisle, I'll break it for you, the only secret that ever existed in Freemasonry is that the nation of Israel was never the nation of Israel. There was never a country known as Israel. There was never a territory known as Israel. Israel was nothing more than several bands and tribes of people spread out throughout the region of the Middle East, and who over time have always sought to have this land And it is the Masons' goal, the actual Freemasons of the world's goal, to actually have one. Now you read that book was written in the 1800s, mid-1800s, Civil War-ish time. And just, yeah, you read that book, Richard Carlisle's Manual of Freemasonry. If you can't find it, just Skype me, I'll drop it right on you. These are important things to know if you're not going to be hooeyed by these people that tell you Luciferian Satanists are coming to kill you. Now, also because this isn't the advanced class yet, without going in directly to a ritual, we'll tell you the basic components of most rituals and different sorts. A real ritual magician dealing with the force known as Satan. Satan being a blanket force with inside consciousness, giving enough force through belief that can break itself from the realms of imagination and the dreaming, and have physical presence in this world through mass belief. These things happen. Now, where's the kind of thing I've never experienced? You know why? Because I don't believe in Satan. People who do can have vastly different experiences. And it's why so often you see people say they're having this experience and they can point at it and they can film it and they can feel like it's such a miraculous thing, and to them it truly is, but the rest of us watching are just like, what? It's because you don't have the belief. The people who have the belief are who it's real for. So it's not real to you, but it's real to the person who has the belief. Satan, and you want to summon him and you want him to do something for you. A lot of ritual magic revolves around that basic thought. Even though it's not always called Satan, you can call many, many other names besides Satan. There's many, many other archetypes to fill. So when you get into demonology, that's the first thing you realize is that just like there's God and Jesus and 72 angels guarding the 72 angels under them and the armies of heaven is equally, it is cast below in hell. There's another translation of as below, so above, I've heard. It proves they're Luciferian because hell is below. Whatever. So, you want to summon Satan, you're going to need a few things. You know, the first most important thing involved in summoning and controlling a force like Satan? Purity. Virginity is best. Necessarily, you don't have to be a complete virgin, but as long as for a time period you have purified your body, you have fasted for the appropriate amount of times, cleansed yourself. There's a lot of physical, strenuous self-discipline involved in a ritual such as that. So someone who's supposed to hold the principles of purity and virginity so that they appeal to God in order to control this force wouldn't be the kind of people that are just raping children in the woods. God doesn't like that kind of thing. God's not going to let you control a force like Satan if you're doing that kind of thing. Another thing that's going to be required, aside from purity and virginity, and that just doesn't, purity doesn't just go for yourself. Your tools are going to have to be pure as well. You can't, like say, in the modern world, you read it and it'd say, oh, I need a knife, and you go to Walmart and buy a knife. No, you have to make the knife yourself. It's funny, isn't it? You have to create these tools yourself because your dedication, your belief as you create these tools are what give the tools power. You are harnessing a part of your consciousness and dedicating it in such a way that you're going to be able to control this force of nature in the name of God. Now, the other thing you're going to need to know, aside from having purity and virginity in you and your tools being pure, is you're going to need, you're going to need tools, so we might as well put that on there. And your tools, like I said, your tools need to be pure. You need to create them themselves. Even right down to the robes that you wear and the symbols that you draw. Now, symbology is going to play a big role in it. Because everyday symbols that are thrown out there through the lower religions collect this mass belief around them. And what a ritual magician knows how to do is take the belief rooted in that symbol and use it as a conscious force and direct it with his own will. So the more belief that's cast into any one symbol that you choose to use in this circumstance, the more power it's going to have in controlling the element that you seek to control. And in this case, God. You don't summon Satan and say, "Hey Satan, how you doing? Nice to meet you. Name's Sean. Yeah, I was wondering if you could do me a favor. My eternal soul, no problem. I just need all the powers of Superman so I can rape, murder, and kill the entire planet." You know how we in world order people are. Doesn't work like that. You're inside a circle. If you leave that circle, eternal doom is promised to you. You will be consumed by that dark force. In order to control it, you need the protection, you need the will, and you need the power of God. So you got all those things. How come is it that people never understand that when they're just blanketly making the statement, "We're run by Satanists and Luciferians"? I don't understand. I never did. So that's why I would say that in a way, this isn't responsible. And this is how it's written. This is how, when you go to those books and you read them, this is how it's laid out for you. This is what involves in a ritual. There is no ritual where you go and, like, never in all the grimoires have I ever read that you just go sacrifice something and you call out the name of Satan and Satan shows up and you worship Satan. Never have I read in any book from the Masons, in any book from the Rosicrucians, in any book from the Druids, from the Sumerians, from the Kabbalists, the Clavicula Salamanus, none of these involve. I mean, they do involve summoning Satan, but none of those in the way that people think it goes down. You have to be pure of heart and spirit. You have to be well-intentioned. You also can't summon him to do something like just random. Nothing that Satan doesn't want to do. And then, like, why would you? And that Satan is representative of just any dark force. There's so many names for it. There's Abaddon, there's Pazuzu, there's Baal, there's Lucifer, there's Satan, is just one name. So, and anybody that's familiar, I mean, if you've read any of Anton LaVey's work, he has a very, very good insight to it. Just period. Because he sees it all as hocus pocus and being something that you manipulate with your mind, and therefore created a new set of symbology and a new way of ritualizing magic. He was the first one that really made spells and rituals that involved groups trying to accomplish a goal, and he had some success. If you can read some of his autobiographies, there's some strange coincidences in there to see, and more so success than the older ones did, because they didn't do complete group ceremonies so much as they did like individualized rituals, something very personal. Groups didn't start really forming as like a common way of ritual magic being performed really until like the 1800s. You know, aside from Masons, which was a loose band of people who shared a secret more than it was anything. But I mean, and then you started having things like the Golden Dawn and the OTO showed up. And now there's just so many of them that you can't even count. It's just steamrolled. And all these things people don't understand. That in the magics you claim they use, none of it is what you say. And you can point to any symbol you want to, you can point to anything, doesn't matter. What these people have done is laid for you out a basic pattern, and they give you symbols every day. These symbols can mean anything to you. Doesn't matter how you see them and what geographical means they are shown. You see these symbols every day. Groups of people attribute different beliefs to each of these symbols, but in the printed consciousness that we all share, these symbols still have strength, because we all know what this symbol is, we just have a different belief of it. Now, the more belief that's directed in one way or the other is to say that this is the sign of Baphomet, and that means Satan, then truly this will be given that power, and you will need to use this symbol to draw out that aspect of consciousness. By controlling your belief of symbols, by controlling your belief of anything, they control this world. That's why I try not to believe in anything. Some things you just can't avoid. You have to believe some things. You can't prove it themselves. It's faith. You have to have it in some aspects. But try not to believe in anything. Because when you start believing in something, that's when you start changing the world, not realizing how you're doing it because you're allowing other people to change it for you. So I'm going to let y'all stew on that. I think that's a good bit for you. Comment, rate, all that stuff. You got any questions, things you'd like to see in future shows? We will be going into more detailed analysis. As I said, we're starting out basic. This is a long-term thing I'm looking at here. So as I want you to just become familiar with these very shocking, very basic principles, because while they are very shocking, they are absolutely basic principles. And yes, we will get to the point where I'm standing here with grimoires open and describing to you rituals on the board. So we will get into that, just not right now. You've got to get some basic concepts down, and then we're going to start from step one and see if anybody really wants to go to class. So hope you all have a pleasant day. I don't know. I wish you all happy, good, groovy vibrations. So anyway, I hope everybody has a great day, great night. See you again next time. Like I said, just let me know if you got any ideas, anything to share. I'm open. Sean Merriman. I'm out.